What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another edition of Intelligence, bringing you knowledge with the power to change. I'm your host, Brennan Dunn. We got a lot on deck today. We're going to be talking about everything from pop culture, politics. We have a special guest who's going to be joining us. We're talking about interracial relationships, the integration of black men, black women, and how that dynamic works in a relationship status. A lot on deck. I'm excited about it. We're going to jump right into this, starting with my main man over here, Charles Sherrod Jr., the tech guru to them all.
What am I doing?
Just saying hello. Like
What's
you,
going
like
on?
you've done literally every single episode.
You usually introduce me. You didn't say start with me, so.
Anyway, Dr. Rod Singleton, the medical extraordinaire aficionado.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
So,
You're a lot. So that's how we do this. And the main man, criminal defense attorney, Damon Parrish.
I'm here. Usually I go first, but I understand.
But we want to save the best for last, and the last being this beautiful young lady, Allie Booker. She is a civil rights attorney, and she is going to be our resident person talking about interracial relationships. So, are you excited today?
I am.
So, whatever goes on, Allie, know that we love you at the end of the day.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So, starting right off with pop culture, Dru Hill has just added 2 new members to their group, and you got names of Jawan Smoke Peacock and Benjamin Blackbush have joined after the departure of Larry Jazz Anthony.
Y'all don't know what y'all talking about right now. Y'all laughing like that's funny. That's Smoke Dick Larry. You know who that is, right?
I'm not laughing at them. I'm just saying that they've added 2. That's Damon. You need to turn to Damon on that one. But these guys are responsible for some key music, and I'll let Dr. Rod talk about those key vocals. But they did stuff with Aaliyah. They've been around for quite a long time. So, do we really care? Are we really expecting good things from Dru Hill and them?
I don't know why they're still trying. Now, I'm not the music guy. Dru Hill had a couple of good songs. Cisco had a couple of good songs. And I guess if they come back with something good, that'd be nice. If there's a new song coming out or I don't know. But I personally don't really care that much about them. Unless they make a good song, and then I'll care a lot.
So
It's like that.
So, Charles, during the nighttime, you do a little bit of musical professionalism.
I do.
Also known as the what?
The Houston Wedding DJ.
The Houston Wedding DJ. So, you've seen people come and go. You've seen old school become new school. We've seen Charlie Wilson go from the Gap Band to who he is now. Is this something that how hard do you think it is to re-energize yourself as an R&B group? And, is Dru Hill the kind of group, Cisco and them, the kind of group that can make it?
Yeah, I think they can make it. Well, you got to remember, so when you got a catalog like Dru Hill has, you can always tour. So Dru Hill can come to the Arena Theater or some small theater right now with another group with a bunch of 90s people, and they're going to sell out. So keeping that group alive and keeping that music alive is good. Now, if they do new music, there's people from the 90s that do. Stokely from Mint Condition had a solo album that's really good. It's not going to be what the kids are listening to, but yeah, it's definitely something I would check out. And with most groups, if you didn't replace the lead singer, if Cisco is still there, most people are still going to check for him. So, they're not going to burn the world down, but I'd pay, I'd go see him.
Some would argue that, once you get into, or once a group disbands, there's a reason why they disbanded. Is this the kind of situation where, I don't know,
let me ask you this. If you're not a real Dru Hill fan, can you name all the members of the group?
It's in front of me, so the
No.
answer is yes.
Before that, if somebody said Dru Hill, you would say Cisco and them.
Cisco and them.
Right. You don't know who they are.
Pinocchio,
So if they come and they can still. Well, you're a music guy though.
Yeah.
But if you're not really a music guy, if you go and they do a good show and Cisco's there, you'll be happy with it. But Jazz really had a what was the Beauty?
Beauty, yeah.
Jazz, I think he'll be missed, but by music people. But most people are good.
I don't know, Chuck. I typically agree with you on the music tip, but I'm not really. I'm
not
not clamoring to see Dru Hill, man. I would be more enthusiastic about Frankie Beverly announcing they had 2 new members than Dru Hill. And that wasn't even my era, man. I'm not feeling it.
It's like I said this about Miguel. For some groups, you want to hear the songs. You're not really concerned about hearing those people perform those songs. But
what if Miguel had made it into Fatty Cool? Like, would we even know Miguel as he is right now?
Probably not.
I don't know, man.
Good for him.
We didn't know. A lot of independent, like individual artists started off in groups that weren't that successful. Do you know the group that Freddie Jackson started off with? Mystic Merlin. No one knows that. Like, but there are a bunch of people who started off in this obscure group. Change. Yeah, exactly. Most of them start that way.
Well, so since we're on this music tip, we're going to go in and talk about a little bit about the money side of this, because we talk about how these groups come and go. But there's another financial part of this is really, really important. The music industry makes about $43 billion a year. I mean, it's just stupid how much money is made. Artists collectively make about 12% of that. I mean, and that's actually up from 7% back as far back as 2003 and farther back. So 12%, and 12% is not even really from their music sales. That most of that 12% comes from their touring and other ancillary activities. Apple has said, you know what, we want to try to get into this and maybe give them a little bit more of their personal revenue. We already have the infrastructure to make this happen. We've already got the distribution ready to go. And we, instead of having to develop new talent, we can just take the old talent that's there and not spend the money that's usually invested back into the artist and say, hey, we already know you got a proven product. Let us be a record label. You get a higher percentage. Is this a game changer for Sony and them? As it stands, I mean, are they really about to blow these cats out the water? What is it? Sony, who else? Universal. So I mean, are they? Should they be scared right now?
Scared of what? I mean, it seems like Sony and Universal, one of the things they do is take talent that is there but not harnessed and certainly not publicized, and they make them a star. And in the process, they've learned how to commit you to a certain amount of years or CDs or contracts, circa Lil Wayne, and you're trapped in that, or Prince, you're trapped in that until you satisfy their conditions. I mean, everybody knows the industry is what it is. I'm not a musician, and I've watched the New Edition stories. I watched TLC stories. I realized that the industry sucks for artists coming out, and it's not until you make it and get powerful that you can jump free and make your own label or make your own money. So I don't think they're going to suffer any. I mean, it sounds like all Apple's doing is just capitalizing on already made talent that is not under contract.
So, Allie, I'm sure you listen to a little bit of music, right?
I do.
As it pertains to, because Chance is one of the new type of rappers who he actually doesn't make you pay for his music. He gives the music out, and then he decides, you know what, I'll make my money on the back end, on the shows and everything else. I mean, are artists getting raped in this, or is it really just about most artists come out new, so they have no money, so this is just the dues that you pay?
Exactly. I mean, I think at the end of the day, they always can remain independent. And I think that's why a lot of artists are independent. I grew up, with artist B King. He's independent. Not to say he wouldn't sign with the label, but the money would have to be right, and it's never right. And he's very intelligent. So you have people, such as him, Kaya, that aren't going to sign. So at the end of the day, do I feel like it's their fault? Yes, Dr. Kaya.
The sauce is starting early.
I was just astounded that name came up. I'm serious.
She said, "Don't flex on her gangster."
Please don't.
But no, listen. Before I moved to Houston, when I was in the Navy, a lot of my homeboys were from the Gulf Coast, especially Houston and New Orleans, and there were a lot of artists I had never heard of before who were out here doing their thing, independent, making more money than any of the cats who were signed to major labels. I think Nas talked about it on one of his albums, talked about the down south, it ain't really crazy, they making money. It's true. Like, I don't really understand why any of these artists who have a saleable product like a Chance was signed to a major label. It seems like most of these guys rather have recognition and fame more so than they would wealth.
Well,
control the.
I think there's a reason if you are an artist who wants to do more than be an artist, because what the labels do now is they sign them for 360 deals, and the 360 deal means that they get a piece of everything you do, whether it be acting, merchandising, or whatever. So if you're somebody like Rihanna, right? Let's say you're a Rihanna or you're that type of artist, and you can go into a label and you know that they'll front you enough money so that you can do all of these other things and those revenue streams come to you, you'll be okay taking that large upfront money and then having those revenue streams come to you that you share with the record company. Now, if you're a guy like these Houston rappers and all you want to do is make music, then you make music independently or you give it away, and then you go tour where you keep all of your merchandise, the T-shirts you sell. So if you're like a Slim Thug who's got beer and T-shirts and shoes and all these things, he and his company make 100% of those profits. So I think it depends on the artist, because if you're an artist and you want to do all these other things, you want to go like all of the actors on Empire that are artists, right? They sign a contract that says you get a piece of everything, the music, the acting, and all that. But in return, they get to become bigger stars with more access to other things. So
But aren't you just a
if you're
slave?
independent, you're not.
Of course you're a slave.
You're not. But
I would
that's
answer
not
that to
true
me
at
is no,
all.
because I mean, how many people first of all can buy into such a? I mean, that's almost like buying into your own franchise for free at this point, and you put in like 5 years worth
But
of work.
again, this is what we also miss, right? This is the record label's fault too, because when Napster and all that stuff was happening and people were downloading music, they were so worried about illegal downloads. Instead of creating the infrastructure to sell directly to their customers, where you can log into whoever.com and get your music, they allow these technology companies. So now, I pay Apple Music every month. I don't pay Apple Music for the music. I pay them for access to a library. I pay them for their technology. I pay Spotify or whatever it is. You pay for access to that, and they cut out the artists. So the artists as creators, it doesn't matter what you create. You can't sell directly to your consumer unless you're independent, like they used to do, where they drive around the record stores, sell their CDs on consignment, and they get back all the money. So that's kind of the record label's fault as well.
And quite honestly, Allie, back to your comment on slave labor. I mean, you got to understand, with every business and with every profession, you got to pay your dues before you get in there. And these cats come in; these are the dues you pay. Entertainment is one of those industries where it's a New York Minute type thing, where 5 years is literally a lifetime. So if you can last that long, your contract isn't a lifelong contract. Your contract's somewhere usually between 3 to 5 years, or depending on the type of contract you have, it's a number of records to be made. So you've got like a 4 or 5 record contract. Once you've done it, you're good to go. But you got to put in your dues. And I mean, I don't know how else you're supposed to do that.
Look at
except
it
you're doing it like
this
Chance.
though. Let's say you're a mom and pop business outside of music, not creative, and you sell candles, right? And you got a really good candle business in Houston, and you're making a killing. And then Walmart comes along and says, we can put you all over the country, but you have to give us a percentage of your profits. Do you do it? Maybe you say, no, I want to retain creative control, and I'm doing well. But then you say, I got to change. You know what? If I go to Walmart, not only can I make candles, now I can make pot holders, and I can make whatever. That gives you the ability to switch if you want to do that. So I think it's an option.
What were we going to say?
I mean, I think it's kind of like wanting to own your own business. I think you either want to be a worker or a mocker. You know what I mean? You're a mocker or a schmoozer. And so if you're going to sign with a label, you're not willing to do what it takes. At the end of the day, you need someone to be over you. You want them to pimp you out, take your money, and give you meager foul.
So you'd rather
that's
be a
what
starving
happens.
artist that's working out of their trunk for the next 15, 20 years, and then hopefully maybe I get enough to
What
to
is
do
the
something?
difference
If I'm
between
getting
getting Toni
100%,
Braxton every
if I'm
time
getting
she files
100%
for
of $2 million, that's
bankruptcy?
better than getting
I mean,
0.05%
You
on
got to get to 2 million. 2 million might take you 20 years to get to.
Not necessarily.
But
Listen,
man,
man.
let's be real. If you got a hot song in the streets, but you still live in the hood, and everybody think you rich, and a record label comes along, you ain't never had nothing in your life. You made one song, and they tell you, I give you $500,000. That's more money you ever seen in your life for some of these kids, and they 18, 19 years old.
My
So,
point.
No excuse to get
Exactly.
Yeah,
And they make so
yeah,
much
but
off
they're
of you.
getting jerked. But
I know, man, but
if you young and broke,
this goes back to the fundamental scheme of us not controlling the industries and the artistry that we create. Like, we get jerked across the board, whether
Black
it be
people-
entertainment.
black
But
people
to be fair,
black
we
people
jerk
black
our
people
own.
too.
Right, we jerk our own. I mean, how many times have you
Some
seen?
of the
Look
bad
at Weezy.
artists
Look at
are broke.
Weezy and Baby going through it. I mean,
Look,
Weezy
face
just got
TLC.
It's learned behavior.
So at the end, I mean, money is money, man, and people are always going to try to screw you over when it comes to money. To make theirs, somebody has to die, and most of the time, it's the person on top killing the person on bottom.
Especially when they think they can go out and get anybody to do what you do.
Exactly.
Right.
So we're gonna switch over to sports real quick as we go down the line of issues today. So the NCAA just came out with a new rule that they adopted, saying that they are going to allow elite college players and high school recruits to hire certified agents and still maintain college eligibility. The big question in this is what is considered elite? Who's going to determine that elite process? And then they open it up for a certain number of people, because the elites are only going to be 10 to 15 people, generally speaking, that even have this ability. And also, they have expanded the recruiting process from 5 to 15 visits, which is going to put a strain on recruiting budgets across the board. I really don't care, but the institutions are worried about that, saying now we got to put in more work, more money to try to get these cats out here. So as far as this elite status is concerned, I don't see how this really helps the situation.
So I don't think determining who's going to be the arbiter of who is elite is the crux of the matter. I think more so than anything, this is the NCAA's tell. They basically know that the writing's on the wall for them. The jig is up. That this scheme, this racket is about to come to an end in some foreseeable future, right? And I don't know what this is intended to address. Like, how many players are going to benefit from this? I don't know what is the ostensible goal here.
Well, that's what I said. I don't know who this really is afforded the opportunity. I mean, you got even the cats that are coming straight out of high school and going to the pros. You got to do a one and done now for the NBA. But I mean, they sit there for a year and then they go. During that time, we all know that people are already approaching them. I guess this is a matter of making it legal for them instead of having to do it below board. But I mean, quite honestly, this is a system that having the most elite go through isn't going to change the substantive system as it is.
Because the majority of players don't go to the pro level, and that the majority of players who are still being affected by the NCAA system are not. This is not going to address the systematic issues at all.
There was another aspect to that I think will address it, and that if I understand correctly, whether you're a leader or not, if you declare and you don't get drafted, you can still maintain your eligibility at school. So that, and I think that exists whether elite or not. I think that's good for.
That's still just an infinitesimal fraction of all the NCAA athletes.
Well, I'm just saying it'd be good. I think that's still something good for the students.
Well, who wants to come back to college after you know what, I'm out, bitches, and then you come back? So being out.
Here's why: because you keep your scholarship and you get a chance to fix what's wrong. If you think you're going to be drafted and you're not drafted, and you're a pro level person to be drafted and you don't get drafted, you can come back and you're still in the program, and if there's an issue with your technique, you get one more chance to get it right, as opposed to now you don't get drafted and now you got to go out and get an agent. Like if you ever watch Hard Knocks, you see guys who come out who don't get drafted. That life is hard. They get an agent, the agent invests a lot of money, they do hopes and prayers on this right now, preseason NFL, trying to make it. I imagine the D League and basketball is the same way. I imagine the minor league baseball is the same way.
But isn't that the purpose of the G League? Isn't that the purpose of FIBA? You're going through there for development purposes.
This way you can stay in school, and let's say, for instance, you don't get drafted.
Ain't worried about school.
Well,
yeah,
maybe.
So is the source of your outcry against the NCAA about the elite players, or is it about the majority of the players who are exploited by the NCAA who still are under the scheme? Because this doesn't do anything to address all of these kids whose bodies are being used to prop up this massive revenue stream that's coming into the NCAA. It has nothing to do with that. And that's my bigger point. This is a drop in the bucket. This is a red herring. This is throwing the dog off the scent. This is them doing something to try to appease us. But this is nothing.
Is it really though? Because it literally does nothing.
That's what I'm saying. It does nothing, but we're talking about it as if it's a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's a distraction.
Well, no, it is a big deal.
To a very few people.
It's a big deal in scope, in policy. Now you're seeing a change. Now they're allowing you to go pro. Oh, you to make pro? Come back to be amateur. Now they're saying if you're a high schooler and you're still amateur, now you can get an agent. That's a monumental step forward, because before, if you were an amateur, you were an amateur.
So are these guys going to still get suspended for selling their likeness? Are they still going to get suspended for taking money from other outside organizations? Are they still not going to get video game revenue?
Probably.
Are they still going to be paying the coaches millions of dollars while they get nothing?
This is the first.
Question.
I said probably.
So this is nothing. This does nothing.
It doesn't do nothing. It does something because it gets the ball rolling in the next step forward. So you're not going to have a monumental leap where all of a sudden college athletes can now have agents and be treated as pros but still collegiate. But right now, not one big step. It'll happen incrementally. So death by 1,000 cuts, and this is cut to.
I like to see the stat.
So outside of the NBA, we switch over to the NFL, where the NFL has just let the world know that they're going to start including male dancers as part of the reverie. You've got dancers Quentin Perrin and Napoleon Jennings have been preparing for their NFL season since they made the Rams cheerleading squad in March. Both New Orleans and Los Angeles are gearing up to have cheerleaders dance on their squads for the first time. This will open it up to other teams like Indianapolis and Baltimore. They have stuntmen, but I think that's going to transition into more gender-neutral activities. Since I'm all about y'all so childish. Y'all are so childish. I mean, come on, what's wrong with this? I mean, this is gender equality.
I'm all about free enterprise, man. If the marketplace is amenable to that, fine.
Well, the world is
just don't wanna see
changing.
no dudes
Scientology is taking over. I mean, at some point there won't even be a sex according to what people are saying. Doesn't matter.
Madam, how we go from
I'm
NFL
just
to the
saying.
sports?
I'm just saying.
That was some real Louis Farrakhan type stuff you just did right there.
Guys, it's just the way things are headed. It's the way things are headed. And there are male cheerleaders and they're dancing and they're doing this now on the high school level. They're allowing them to do majorettes. They're at all the dance studios. Why not be on the fields?
There's always been male cheerleaders. Like there's never been a time when there wasn't. Now if you're talking about male cheerleaders wearing cheerleader skirts and pom poms,
they're going to wear
which is kind of the insinuation. I don't think that's the case here.
Tights and little tights.
I don't think that's the case here. But I think it's just like men as cheerleaders performing the stunts, being the base for the pyramids, the kind of stuff they do right now. I got a problem with that.
I'm pretty sure they're going to be a little bit more flamboyant than just holding up the cheerleaders. Let's be honest with this. They are going to be swinging and swaying and hip flexing and all that jazz. But
they do it now.
But that's what they do. I mean, these are guys that are real fancy with their dancing. We'll call it fancy. I don't think that you can argue for gender equality and not allow these guys to get out there and do what they do. Matter of fact, to me, it outside of this is almost like the NFL saying, "Hey, we're progressive. We may not want you kneeling for civil rights, but sure, let the gays do what they do."
Well, listen,
assuming that they're gay, because that was
what's the assumption? What's the assumption that any dude that dances is gay?
Right.
That's very.
They are gay, and it's okay to. They are gay, and it's okay. They're gay, and it's okay to assume so.
Chuck be caping sometimes. Chuck, you know, 99% of male cheerleaders are likely gay, though.
Yeah, you're not doing it.
There was a bunch of dudes I went to college with.
Were they straight and prancing?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, so there's going to be a difference.
But let me just say this: it's a business that's entertainment based. I can go to fucking Cirque du Soleil and see a bunch of men dancing. I can go to Beyonce's concert and see dudes that like. Why you going? What's the difference between
the difference is the
NFL?
nature of the dance.
Absolutely.
But yo, you see dudes dancing all the time. Like,
but
my thing is,
examples.
why do you care if they're gay? And you're not gay and you're not attracted to them, why do you care? Can they dance or not? Is it entertaining?
I don't care.
But let's talk about America. I mean, as your boy said, this is America. Okay, there's a certain mindset that's in America right now. We are a homophobic country. Even though we've given rights to people, and even though we've given rights to the blacks and the Hispanics and the women, we still do stuff that is bigoted and misogynistic and homophobic. That is who we are as a country. We give rights only to tell you, just because I gave you this right, don't mean you gonna fuck around and publicly display this right. And that's what it is.
Well,
so when you say what's the problem with it, obviously there's no problem with it for a progressive person. But how many NFL patrons are that progressive?
Not many.
How many pay attention to cheerleaders?
Cheerleaders in the NFL is a dumb concept. Anyways, like I've never understood.
But no, it's
why
not dumb. They have a draw. There's a demand for it.
No, I'm gonna tell you something. I've been in NFL games. I don't even know where the cheerleaders are. During halftime, during timeouts, I am looking at
you a choir boy.
I'm looking at
That's
Facebook.
different.
I'm looking at Fantasy Football League. Check my other scores. I'm checking the stats. I'm not caring about cheerleaders.
Listen,
on the
man.
field.
I'm not about discriminating against anyone, but there's a difference between equality of interest and equality overarching. Like, just because I'm open to a male being a cheerleader doesn't mean I want to see that shit. Personally, I don't want to see it. If I want to see it, I want to see the girl shaking their ass. I'm gonna be real.
So
what about the gay men? They don't get a chance.
No, I'm
to
saying
see
it's cool for them.
man
I'm just saying,
shake
as
it.
far as my dollars being a vote for me.
But what about the gay dollars? They ain't
No, that's not.
$8.
You're making a false argument.
The
I'm
gay
not
folks got money.
arguing.
The gay
I'm not
people
arguing that
got
gay people's dollars don't matter. I'm saying my dollars matter as well.
Are you gonna stop watching?
No,
First of all,
I'm boycotting the NFL, so I'm not watching any of them.
Let's be clear. All dollars matter.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
they do.
it doesn't matter if they're gay dollars. At the end of the day, NFL is saying, as long as it doesn't take away from our revenue stream, we're going to let it happen. Now what they've done is actually open up a can of worms, because if they see a drop off, they can't go back on it, because it's going to make them. No, they won't. They can't. They can't.
They'll just restrict and regulate what can be done on the field, the dances. That's what they'll do.
They can do it.
They're going to be the superior dancer.
Somebody got to make the team. They'll just say you didn't make it.
Right.
You weren't good enough.
And just remember, you kind of hit upon it earlier, that this is really just, don't look at these guys kneeling. This is, don't talk about that no more. Let's talk about gay guys dancing on the field if they are gay. I mean, that's really all it's about.
Okay, man. I love everybody, man. Get money.
And we'll leave it with that. Get money.
Get money.
Moving on. And as we move on, we're going to start to get a little bit more serious. The other day on the news, Fox correspondent Laura Ingraham made some really interesting remarks. She had a whole segment where she was talking about our country, 'tis of thee, this sweet land of liberty, in which she said, in major parts of the country, it does seem that the America we know and love doesn't exist anymore. Massive demographic changes have been foisted on the American people, and they're changes that none of us ever voted for, and most of us don't like. The former Grand Wizard David Duke retweeted her saying, yes, one of the most important truthful monologues in the history of MSM. People are touting this as almost the visage of white nationalism incarnate, being spouted on Fox News. I can't find anything that she said that I can find where it disagrees with that particular notion. She came back and said, hey, what I said wasn't meant to be about race. I don't know how you can talk about the changing demographics of America and not have that be about race, especially when you saw the montage that was sitting in back of her, showing the wall, I mean, everything about it screamed, this type of person is not who we voted for to be in our America that's changing into a demographic that doesn't include us. How do we get past, I mean, are we at the point right now where overt racism is just back again?
Yes, and thankfully, I'm glad. I don't know why everybody's trying to drive the racist underground. Why y'all trying to get Ingraham off the television? I want her to be unabashed about her position and the position that's held by a lot of America, a lot of my coworkers, a lot of our friends. So-called. Why are y'all doing that? Listen, I love the truth. Let me know whose business, not the patron. I love it. I don't want you to drive Laura Ingraham off the air. I don't know why we being so sensitive. This is not. It's racist because of where it comes from, but
this is
not.
Said, shut up and dribble.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not inherently racist, but it's racist in the context.
I think it's inherently.
No,
how is it?
No. It's not inherently racist. It's an observation and it's a fact. There are a lot of Americans, as evidenced by the fact that Donald Trump got elected, who don't like the demographic shift that we talked about.
But
right?
Isn't that inherently racist?
No,
when you're
just
saying
because
that we don't.
Because we want Harlem to stay black doesn't mean we're racist.
That's it. Amen.
Checkmate.
So to me, yeah.
Got him, bro.
Every now and then you make a good
let's
point.
keep it real.
I can't argue with that.
Let's keep it real.
Because
Everything
we
that's
have
about
black
race is not
pride.
racist.
Hold on, what you saying, Allie?
We have black pride, and I feel that they should be able to say whatever they want to say, because when it comes out about black people, I'm going to say what I want to say. So why censor them? Because I don't want to be censored.
Well, no one's saying censor them. What we're saying is quit acting like what you're doing isn't what you're doing. She's going around. You say it. You throw it out there. Say these racially charged
Who said they're
comments.
racially charged?
See,
The words said it for her.
She
it's
is
more of a-
upset. The black person is powerful. White folks are afraid of us. They've always kept us beneath.
She's not even
She
talking
is
about
looking-
black people.
She is talking about colored folks.
Hey, yo, you
So,
gotta leave
but-
them
but
alone.
this is more-
They're on something else right now.
She's
Also,
talking about
you know-
colored folks as a whole. And you have to understand the white man. They're not as fast, they're not as swift, they're not as smart, they're not as strong. Not inherently,
Jesus.
at least.
Hey, I want everybody to know. I do not
I'm
endorse those
You
comments.
know who you sound like?
Rod does not
The
endorse
white
those
man
comments.
who said, those black folks, they got a twitch that makes them a little bit faster, but they can't read, they can't think, they're just
No,
beasts
we
of
can
burden.
read, we can
That's
think.
exactly what. But you sound like just like that. You are the reverse. I hate to even say this term because,
So I'm saying-
but it's reverse racism. You know, it is.
Reverse
And I think it exists,
racism.
first of all. But I will say Ingram's comments.
Can we at least say reverse bigotry? Because if you argue that racism is oppression, then yes, we can't be racist, because if the underlying argument is that racism equals oppression, obviously, but it's definitely reverse bigotry.
No, it's not. It's pride for one's own self, and that's why you can't get upset for.
You sound like a white nationalist.
They can feel the way that they want to
talking
feel. You allow them to feel that they're the best, because I feel that black people are the best. So
Cheers to
why
that.
should we take that away from them? If they want to feel pride about who they are,
Well,
let them say
Let me
it.
answer this question. What you just said, just as a kind of a segue. If we are the best, then we are the best. And you don't let anybody think you're the best when you are the best. You know, you don't let the second place think they won first. If you're first place, you're first place, and you announce it. Now, to Ingram's comments, they may be racist, but they sound more nationalist to me, which walks the very tight line of racism, but. Kind of piggybacking on what Rod said, you could be black and still feel the same way that Ingram felt. You don't have to just be white. Now, she may have been targeting the white community against the brown community, but you don't have to be white to feel what she said. I think it's more. I think it's more nationalist. I think it's more her attack on a changing culture. And not so much just more brown people, but the culture and that minorities bring.
So now that I've had a chance to ponder what Dr. Singleton said, I have a retort for that, and it comes in by way of what Damon also said just now, which is there is a difference between black pride and white nationalism, because with black pride, that is a sense of us trying to find a place in this country. It is us actually protecting ourselves from the damage that's been done, saying, you know what, we have been, our psyche has been beaten down, so we actually have to do some intrinsic motivation and say, for several hundred years we were told that we were less than. No, sir, you are more than the less than. So that's what I consider to be black pride versus this white nationalism that says we don't want you here unless you are doing something for us in a manner of subservience. Well, those are two different types of mantras. White nationalism is saying we're good without you, and we don't want you here for any other reason other than to serve us. Black pride is saying we've been subjugated for so long, we want to be included. One is exclusive, one is inclusive. And just because you say something like, well, what about people in Harlem wanting to have an all-black Harlem? The difference is we've never had anything in America that was progressively our own. So yes, we want the opportunity, because we were shut out of white America, to have something. If you didn't want us, then let's be inclusive to our own. Because I can guarantee you right now, if black people wouldn't have an issue with brown people coming in, they wouldn't have an issue with progressives coming in, but they do have an issue with the type of people who have been pervasively invasive coming into the situation.
You know, the one hole in your argument is we argue and talk about white people as if there's some monolith, right? White people didn't include the Irish at one point, right? Mm-hmm. You know, they have enclaves within the cities. In any city you go to, they had to fight for recognition, fight for equal rights as well, right? So why do we give why are you giving us this particular pass or this caveat when you're not giving it to other people in this so-called monolith of white people? Your argument doesn't stand up when you look at it like that. There's no white people really until they unify, they find common ground, right? But no, what's your retort to that?
That we don't find common ground with them?
No, you missed it. See, I know what you were doing. Let me.
So I apologize because I'm trying to multitask.
Yeah, I know. And I got you.
You did this on purpose, too.
No, I didn't.
Go ahead, say it again one more time.
I just said that white people aren't a monolith. You've had segments of white society who have been disenfranchised. You have segments who have been oppressed. The Irish comes to mind, right?
Okay.
And so you have different ethnicities within this umbrella of whiteness we conceive as a monolith.
Gotcha.
And if you're talking about it being different for white people versus us because we are fighting to preserve something that we have in a society that tries to take everything away from us, well, you can say the same thing for other demographics within the white community as well. So it doesn't hold up.
I don't really think you can, because at the end of the day, let's talk about the progress of white America as they transferred themselves over here. You had this Puritan class that first came in here and did what they did. It was a homogenous society of Puritanism. Then all of a sudden you had the Italians come in, you had some Jewish people come in, you had the Irish come in. So at one point you had the Irish saying, hey, I don't want these Italians over here in my particular neck of the woods, and vice versa on the other side. But then all of a sudden, when more groups started to come in, different factions start to get band together and say, well, we're at least better together than this. Saying the Jews coming in and saying, well, hey, we may not all be Italian, or we may not all be Irish, but we're certainly not Jews. So now we've banded together against them. And then as another group comes in, well, let's bring these African slaves over here. Surely we're better than them. So as white groups had to, they formulated cohesiveness within their individual demographics. At no point were blacks ever included in that. At no point were Hispanics ever included in that. If you weren't Anglo-Saxon American, then you went from us being divided to we're stronger together because we all look the same. We all at least come from a European background, so it's not going to be the same. Black people don't have that kind of well, not even I'm not talking about our own. That's a whole different issue. I'm talking about we don't have an end to that secret society because we are the most removed from the homogeny of European American.
Yeah, but so here's what I think. Let's step away from race for just a second. In every society, you can look at India where everybody looks the same. Power always looks for somebody to subjugate and to keep power away from. They have a class system, right? Mm-hmm. They got a caste system where if you were born in a certain caste, you can't rise above that. If you look at white people in America and Europe, people who, whether by violent means or whatever, who have power, always try to hold on to it. If you look at countries in Africa, everybody looks the same, but the people in power find somebody, another tribe or somebody to make the other that are coming to take their place. You hear white nationalists scream, the Jews will not replace us when they march. I think it's more about power dynamics and people who have power, especially white people in this country, when they look at, okay, the demographics are shifting. If the demographics shift, that means there are going to be more of them. If there are more of them, then they can do things like elect officials, and people who hold those offices then control things. They control purse strings, they make different laws, and that's when they lose power. So I think there are a lot of people who are inherently looking at other people as, I don't like that person because they're black, white, or whatever. But I think in this country, they're more concerned about the power and what they're going to lose, and it's not really a race.
I think it's a symbiotic relationship between the two, because you have on one side, obviously, they are afraid, and we've heard white nationalists say this, saying, well, they're taking our jobs, they're taking our land. Let's assume for a second that it's theirs to begin with, but the problem, the question for them is, well, what about me? What happens when you give more to them? In order to give more, there has to be less going to somebody, and that's the question.
You hear that at every level. You hear black people, when Mexican people who will work cheaper and harder take away labor jobs, saying they're gonna come here. They'll come here and they'll work for half of what you work for, and you don't have to.
But it's picking cucumbers. I don't see none of us in line if you hopping in the field.
I mean, but any labor job. But if you think about it, it's always somebody looking at an other that's coming to take something from us.
As we move on to the next part of this topic, Allie, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean,
I didn't mean to put you on the spot if you don't want to.
No, it's okay. My thought process is, I believe that I said originally exactly what they're saying. Of course, you have to put someone beneath you. But at the end of the day, you put down those who you don't want to conquer you. And if they're a threat, you bat them down. And so that is what is being done.
So white people are being backed into this corner. This is the only way for them to fight us.
Absolutely.
One last thing, on Laura Ingraham specifically. There was another stat that came out today that said some upper 90% of Fox viewers are white people. She was speaking to the people that watch her. That's the message that they give out.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but we're gonna move on to the black. Well, I'm not gonna call her the black Laura Ingraham. She's just a black woman who is to be feared and respected, and is also very, very much hated, which is Omarosa Conspiracy. And you just said who, and that's a good question, because I actually had that same question. But Omarosa has been real relevant in the last several days. She has done several things. One, she's come out and said that she's heard firsthand recordings of President Trump using the N-word. This was after her time in office, and somebody said, as she's promoting her book, hey, I got some information for you. So she's actually heard it. She's also made the claim, and actually has put out some recordings saying that, hey, here's some information to share with you. She was fired by General Conway, and he said, look, this is my arena. I'm chief of staff. You don't have any business here. the president doesn't have any sway over this decision. She then displayed a recording where President Trump was on the phone with her, acting in disbelief about her being fired, saying, "I had no idea, hate to see you go." Then the president tweets out later saying, "This is a wacky woman, she's not smart, she should have never been here in the first place," or not that she should have never been here, but she's showing her true colors to us, yada, yada, yada. Omarosa has basically said she's declaring war on the White House and she's about to blow everything out the water. She has said that Trump is more of a puppet and that there are other people that are pulling the strings, and that he actually doesn't know what goes on and everybody else runs the White House. Omarosa got a lot of flack for joining the White House to begin with. We already knew who she was. She was a 3-time Celebrity Apprentice and Celebrity Apprentice personality. She's always been in your face, outspoken, well-spoken, but black people have tended to not like her disposition. Is she a villain? Is she a victim? Is she a little bit of both?
I just want to take this time to say I had this exact debate with somebody at work. I know personally. So, Miss Nicole Dix, I know you're watching right now. Please let us know your feelings about Omarosa, because we talked about this today, and I would love to repeat and debate with you on air about what you said.
So, you familiar with the movie The Spook That Sat by the Door?
No, but
it's about the black CIA, the black agent that got into the CIA, and the whole time they tried to give him these menial jobs, but he sat at the door and he's basically watched how they moved, and he came and brought the information back to the black community.
Okay.
So, as much as you detest Omarosa personally, right? I don't really care for a lot of things she does, but she's a very intelligent woman. She makes it happen. I've seen her defend herself against some of the most avid liberals, and she's destroyed some of them on principle. So I don't really, she's not my flavor, she's not my cup of tea, but I appreciate the fact that she has this first-hand information from somebody who he's espoused to trust, someone who he's endorsed, and now that's coming back to bite him in the ass. Now we have this incontrovertible evidence that would suggest that he's everything that we think he is. This is valuable information. I don't see why anybody, why are we always, our problem as black people, we are too emotional. We don't play chess. We need this information. We need her. She was a valuable asset to us. If we look at it that way, we don't have to like her, but the information she's bringing back to us is very useful. I don't understand why.
For what purpose?
Because it's one thing to assume that Donald Trump is an overt racist, right? Some people can hide behind this policy, say, well, the ostensible purpose was this, but even though it has the effect of discriminating certain people, when you hear that he calls people niggas straight up, you hear that, he directly contradicts himself, he's not mentally stable, all the things he's saying, it corroborates what we already know, what we thought we knew. She's somebody who was credible and who's giving us information that basically is sound.
This isn't going to change anybody's opinion about Trump. If you already know Trump's a racist, this is not going to make you say, oh, I already know, and now I really know he's a racist. And if you don't think he's a racist before, this won't change your mind now.
So sometimes it's not about the majority of the liberals. It's sometimes getting some of those minority conservatives to say, you know what, maybe we have backed the wrong horse, and maybe it's time for us to get off of that.
If you supported Trump and you have still supported Trump to today, then you support the man. Then that's just it. And I watched a show on CNN, and this guy said that if God came down and told him that Trump colluded with Russia, he would say, "God, hold on, let me go ask Trump." You're talking about somebody.
CNN. You talking about somebody.
What I'm saying is, if you already think Trump's a racist, then you think he's a racist. This won't help. If you don't think he's a racist before, you won't think so now.
Let me jump in because I got to say this. I'm surprised to hear a lawyer say that, because y'all lawyers say all the time, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. If this woman has proof, I don't give a damn about who she gets on TV and talks to. She's talking to people, the people that are going to shift the election, whether or not this man gets to continue to be president, are people who are on the borderline, people who are moderates. He's going to have his camp. There are people who are going to be in the other camp. You got to worry about the people who are borderline, the same people who had that choice to make last time and said, well, it's the lesser of two evils, I'll go ahead and pick him. Some of those people are going to be concerned whether or not this man uses those words in the setting, what kind of person he is he mentally stable, is he going to stand by? Like, there are white people who voted for him, who've lost their jobs and thought they were going to keep their jobs. This is important information. Like, I agree with Rod. You can't just throw it away and say, oh, we knew he was right. Yeah, we did.
She's an opportunist.
Off top, but there are a lot of people who don't know that, and if you can have something that says, I have concrete evidence, there are a lot of people that's going to make a difference to.
Here's what I'm saying. I'm not saying throw it away. I'm not saying don't use it. I'm not saying it's not relevant. What I am saying is, if at this stage in the game, you still don't think Trump's racist, nothing will convince you. You're not the moderate conservative. All right, if you're the kind of person right now who doesn't think Trump's a racist, nothing will convince you, short on Trump coming out saying, I'm a fucking racist and I don't like XYZ people. He says that, you will agree to it. If he says it out his own mouth, unless he makes a own self-admission, confession, and not something of evidence.
It's not just
of milk
racist other stuff.
But honestly, I mean, I don't feel that Trump's a racist. And even after Omarosa's little ploy, I still don't think he's a racist. At the end
You
of
are
the day,
almost cementing Damon's opinion.
I am.
Racist.
I second that because I'm telling you, at the end of the day,
What is
allegedly, I think she slept with Trump. So
can you
she's
define
just
racist?
upset.
So now we're just gonna put out
She's
some
just
flavored
mad.
ass
So
rumor.
white man
Allegedly,
that
I'm
sleep
just
with
the
black
woman.
women
I'm
can't be
just
racist?
looking.
I would love for you. I would love for you to define what a racist is.
Because if a white
A
person saying nigger
racist-
ain't racist, then I don't know what it is.
No. Let me explain something to you. White people are allowed to use the word nigger just like I can use the word honky. I call them crackers, honkies, all types of stuff. And if you look at my Facebook page, more than half my friends are white. I grew up in Cypher. I'm quick to call somebody a cracker or a honky all the time. I'm not racist.
Disavow those
A
statements.
lot of my closest friends are white and they know it.
So you would have no
Hey,
problem
crackers.
with a white person saying, "Hey, nigga."
No, I don't. Let me tell you why.
Please do, because I think our
Not
viewers
only
want
do
to
we,
know.
not only do we use the word,
so
but you have
glad
to
you
see
came.
what context they're using that word in.
What
I know
context does-
plenty of white people that have said nigger this and nigger that, and they're not racist.
So
They're
so-
big.
So
what
if
you
I didn't ask you to tell me what's not racist, tell me what is a racist. Because
Let me explain
if a tree year after year bears pears on that tree on those limbs, it's essentially a pear tree, right?
No, let me explain.
So if the actions
It's
lead
just
to
a tree
racist
that just so
consequences,
happens
to
to
be
put out pears.
yeah.
Apple-shaped pears. That tastes like pears.
A racist white person is a white person that will have nothing to do with a colored on any level. They're not going to hire a colored. They're not going to be photographed with a colored. They ain't going to hug a colored. They ain't going to kiss a colored. And they darn sure not going to sleep with a colored, allegedly. Like Donald Trump is doing.
That's not true.
So
That
Shirley-
just means he is
Hold
black.
on. Now let me stretch
No.
here, because
Let her
what
finish
you
her-
just,
yeah, let
I'm
her-
sorry,
let
I
her
want you to
finish.
finish. I'm gonna let you
Let her
finish.
finish.
When you're racist, and I've went to school with racist kids, I hate the racist ones. They won't deal with me on any level at all. They denounce it. They don't want to be seen. They don't want you touching them. Don't sit next to them. They ain't gonna sit at the table and nigga done sat at. They ain't gonna eat from a spoon and nigga done ate from. They're different. They want nothing to do with.
Mississippi racist. Man.
So
But those are that honestly, you can't say someone's racist if they're not like that.
But you can.
Right.
Raphael says it best. Raphael McCary just
my
said
boy.
there are shades of racism. So what you just described was the varying shades of racism, and not only the varying shades of racism, but the varying overtness of racism. The varying shades of how much I really hate you. Some people can tolerate a black person, but still not want you around them in their social circle. You can't tell me that the same people that you're talking about are the same people that would say, you know what, Mammy, I have Mammy here every day. I just love Mammy, and Mammy will be the only person that's allowed in that household because Mammy serves a purpose. If you don't serve a purpose for a white person with that type of mentality, then guess what? They don't want you in their lives. When a person can say to you, oh, nigger this, nigger that, and laugh with you, they are laughing not with you, but at you to say, ha ha, I am allowed to say this in front of this person, and this fool doesn't even know that I am saying this shit against her and not with her. Never have I ever had a white person come up to me and say nigger and mean it in the friendliest of terms.
I'm just gonna file her under ridiculous though.
Why?
I'm just gonna move on with that.
I am from
Listen,
the backwoods.
I am
I
gonna yield
know.
my time.
I am from Saipan. I'm from the sticks. Okay.
Saipan.
Thank you.
You are from white
In
America.
a sea of white, I was a speck of black. I can tell you the racist ones. I'm telling you. You don't want to listen to
I mean,
me.
yeah.
So basically,
I
what you're
lived
saying
with
is
them,
that
I
you
ate
were
with
the
them, I grew up
token.
with them.
You were the token who was allowed to be there. You were the one who substantiated. Oh, we got us a black. I have a black friend. I have one black that I can bring around. Oh, Allie, she's cool. Every time I walk around another black person, I'm gonna clutch my pearls and clutch my purse. But Allie, that's the good nigga right there.
Let me just can I go to one thing though? Because I'm following that under ridiculous.
Yeah, you think.
But here's the crux for me. I don't care if Donald Trump is racist or not. I don't care if he was married to a black woman. If you, as the president, CEO, whatever you want to be of this country, enact policies and things in this country that are racist in nature, that's what I care about. You ain't got to like me. Because there's going to be people that don't like us and don't like black people or whatever. But if you enforce policies and put things in place that allow racist things to happen, that's what I care about. Because I don't, that doesn't matter to me. I don't care. If you don't want to be my friend, cool. I don't want to be yours either, But I don't care if he's racist or not. If he's not racist, great. But his policies are.
All right, so that's the last word on that. We're going to come back to this race issue because we also have to talk about interracial relationships. I need to take a break from it because my cholesterol is going up just thinking about this shit. Let's take a moment, go over to some tech stuff, and we're talking about Snapchat dysmorphia. Essentially what that means is people that use filters. You got Snapchat filters, all these new filters that come out. They smooth out your face. They give you dog ears. They plump up your eyes. They do all these things, lips, eyes, all those things. They're cosmetic in nature for a visual effect. So much so has it been going on that doctors are now calling it a disorder to always need it. And people are now acting on the technological visual and putting it in their lives and going to the doctor and saying, hey, I want to look like this because I want to look more like my Snapchat filter. Quite honestly, I don't see this as being any different than the same type of dysmorphia that we've all dealt with. It's just the newest age of technological self-abuse and lack of self-confidence. Is this something that we need to be afraid of at this point? Is this something that, is this too shall pass? Or we are just really turning into a society where at the end of the day, in 2025 or 2040, we won't even look like our regular selves anymore?
So like most things in the media, I don't agree that this is sensationalism. I was just talking to some folks last week about how I have not seen a natural photo of a black woman in the last 2 years. Like, ever since Snapchat filters came out, the one with the bunny ears and the doll baby eyes, the little freckles and shit. Now they getting so slick with it. They gonna Photoshop the ears out and kind of leave just the eye like they got some natural doll baby eyes and shit. The shit is terrible. Now this is just another iteration of so I love the black women. I'm unapologetic about that shit.
Yeah, don't just put it on them all.
But that's all I care about. So
but we got to be fair and say that this is across the board.
This is across the board, right? But I'm still waiting for black women to get back to black features, and now we got this to deal with too.
You got to go to DC for that. Homie.
I know, man. I'm hurting, bro.
Personally, I don't care, and I'm more curious. Is there an ethical consideration for, let's say, doctors, if you were doing plastic surgery and somebody comes in with this kind of nonsense, and I'm asking you, Rod, is there an ethical consideration that you have as a doctor to say, okay, this is a bridge too far, or can you be like, fuck it, you pay for it, you get it?
Listen, I'm an emergency doctor. If you're not dying from something, I don't care what you do. That's a plastic surgeon's purview.
Well, but you have the same ethical considerations.
No, I don't. If you're not gonna harm to yourself, others, and you can perform your daily activities of life, you are allowed to be crazy as shit.
Yeah, but I think some we have seen people that go crazy with plastic surgery, but I think a lot of times doctors who perform plastic surgery will make people go through some type of psychological evaluation. Make sure you think about it. But at the end of the day, before Snapchat, people used to take pictures of whatever the hot actress was. They would take that into the doctor's office and say, make me look like this, make me look like Kim Kardashian, whoever it is. So I think it's more a matter now. It's probably on a larger scale now because more women, girls, and men. So I don't want to just put this on females because a lot of men do the same thing too. There are filters for everything. There's apps.
A lot of men are out here filtering.
Yeah.
I guess I don't see that.
There's filters that just do things like make your skin look smoother, make your eyes pop a little bit. Like there are filters that are more than just the dog ears and the bunny ears. There's technology that can make your picture. If you got a Samsung phone, when you take a selfie, it'll smooth your skin out. And just that alone can make somebody be like, well, shit, I need to go. So when I go out in public, my skin will be smooth like that. I need to go see a dermatologist. So I think there are lots of factors coming to play. I think it's most concerning for young people.
So here's my question, because I'm not going to discount what you said about men doing it as well. Obviously, I don't believe that they do it in near the numbers that women do it. So. That being said, do you think that men hold some responsibility for not infusing women with the confidence to not need the filters? We've almost created. Hold on. This is the question. Have we not contributed to the dysmorphia by saying that there's a certain standard that we want? We talk about women all the time. Hold on. Damn. Shut up. Shit. We talk about women all the time in terms of their physical features. Men are always the first to criticize and say, hey, I need you to look like this woman, babe. I need you to do this. I need you to do that.
Ain't nobody asking nobody to put no damn bunny ears on.
Any woman who I love can call up right now or text right now and ask you if I ever in life not encouraging them to be natural as they possibly the way they were born.
That's anecdotal, though.
No, it's not.
That's anecdotal.
No, I'm just saying, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Black men are not all fostering this environment where black women have to become something that they're not. I think it's the opposite. At least in my circle.
Let's also not reduce women to some class of idiots that be like, hey, you look good with this shit in your face, go do it, and they go do it. I hear what you're saying, Brennan, and I get what your point. I get what you're trying to get at. My response is no. I mean, if you want to do it, male or female, you want to do it.
I think we're not holding ourselves accountable for the role we play.
But there's no role we play. Women are control their bodies. If a woman or man wants to go Snapchat filter themselves via plastic surgery, it's not responsive for the other sex.
But there's a psychological component to this as well. We all know that there are unconscious and subconscious psychological components. If someone is always telling you look a certain way that's negative in its connotation, then guess what? What do you go do? You try to change that. So women aren't just getting weaves just because it's multifactorial. But one of those factors is because we prefer to see the girl with the long hair. We prefer to see the girl with the smooth face. We prefer to see something. I agree.
Viewpoint from you.
I agree that it's sexist. I said it's multifactorial. I didn't say that it was just us.
Nah, she done ran out.
I think Brennan is absolutely correct. I mean, women are pumping cement and tire flat in their butts right now. You know why? Because the black man, I like big butts and I cannot. I mean, that's where it started. And then every other song that's out talks about it.
Listen.
The Coke bottle curves and the this and the long hair and the Beyonce and the lighter skin and the bleaching and they're doing all this stuff.
Position because now I have to side with you, but I'm afraid to.
No,
Allie. So
I'm sorry,
we can't rebut.
No, go ahead and rebut. I mean, this is a woman talking, so rebut the woman on the woman's viewpoint.
So listen, first of all, I think it's also patriarchal and it's sexist and misogynistic to suggest that women can't wear weaves or wear whatever they want to wear, right? But my thing is when what underlies that is a psychological kind of like, you know, kind of thing, then that's when I have to find it problematic. And my thing is, black men are held to certain expectations as well. Like everybody want the dude with the 9-inch dick or blah blah blah, like the rappers be talking about. And every man ain't going out dog and pumping semen in his dick, right? Like I mean, it's not. You got to have some accountability, though. Everything that the women do is not on men. Stop caping.
I didn't say that. If you recall, I said multifactorial. You got women literally sitting here saying,
one woman.
No, this is another. Nicole Dixon said men have to accept their part in this issue. Women are enhancing themselves to gain the attention of men. I don't think it's a whole.
Bullshit.
I don't think that's the whole argument. Obviously, women compete against each other for certain viable places in the social strata, but there is something to be said about men creating this view of women that women try to live up to. I mean, I don't see how you can argue.
How many
against
times
that.
have you gone up with your lady?
Let me say this though. So, and Nicole, it's for the attention of men, I would say a certain kind of men. But I'd also say this: when you hear women who talk about each other, how many men? Where do you get? But your edges ain't this, or your hair looks like this. That's stuff women say to each other.
Exactly.
You got this on, and you got that on.
I didn't say
like,
it's a multifactorial problem.
No, you hear a ton of
no edges.
You hear a ton of
Absolutely.
I did a woman with a bald head. I don't give. She fine.
But y'all create these no edges too. Y'all put all that shit. You got some shit in your head right now. I bet you probably bald headed underneath because you don't have.
No, I'm not. Actually, I have a very good hairdresser, and you got to let your hair breathe. Okay?
Listen,
and you got to use the right product.
There's a good comment here because I think this plays a part. Tony Burns says that social media also plays a role. And so when you talk about women that's getting stuff pumped into their bodies and changing their bodies, there's also now a whole market for that. If you're on Instagram and you have 1 million followers because somebody likes the way that you look, there's money in that too. So I think that's the attention. So we might be talking about attention from a dating perspective, but I think some of them are looking for attention that, like, yo, if somebody with no talent can just be fine and get a whole bunch of money, why can't I do that too?
All right, so I know you fellas want to talk more about this, so what we're going to do is have some B-roll come out after the show, and we'll do some more talking on it. And then we'll have some of you ladies and gentlemen, if you have some issues on this, address them with us, because I think there might be a couple of blogs coming out about this issue coming up next week. But I want to move forward because we got too much to talk about to stay on this one subject. Atlanta, there's a charter school in Atlanta that has said they are going to give up having students stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of the day. They said maybe during another portion of the day they'll allow students to do it, but they have seen a shift and more students are not standing up and doing the Pledge of Allegiance. This is an interesting point that I've always thought about, even growing up, this whole Pledge of Allegiance to the country. There's two things I want to kind of dissect with this. One, just in general, should a citizen have to be born into allegiance to a country, saying that you have to be patriotic? And the second part of that is, if you don't feel like your country is doing what you think it should be doing for you as a citizen, should you still then be forced to pledge this allegiance?
I don't know of any school that forces a Pledge of Allegiance. And even when I was growing up, certain religious Jehovah's Witness wouldn't stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance, and they were exempted from it. But I think you should still say the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with national pride. Now, like any form of pride, when you take it too far, it becomes wrong. Man pride, black pride, nationalism. When you take it to the next level, you lose it, and then you create a monster. But being proud of your country and saying a Pledge of Allegiance to your country isn't saying you give over your soul to this country. It's not saying you give over everything you have to it. You just pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And it is a show of patriotism and a show of pride. There's nothing really wrong with that. So I'm not saying you have to, by virtue, be forced to do it. It's always a choice. But you should be given the opportunity to. And if you decide at your school or at your job or what have you that you don't want to say the Pledge of Allegiance, you should not be forced to do it. But if you want to, you should be allowed to do so.
We deal with too many externals, man. Do you even remember? Did saying the Pledge of Allegiance make you feel more patriotic? Because I don't recall it ever imbuing in me some kind of.
But that's indoctrination. I mean, it's supposed to be subtle for you.
I know it's supposed to be subtle, but I mean, how many of you guys? I mean, I'm just saying, like, what is the effect though? What are we concerned about?
You actually do it because when you go to the next country, oh, I'm American.
I'm not an ugly American.
We are always, but again, anecdotal. We're talking about the general American goes out there. We feel this. We're always told America's the best, America's the strongest, America's the smartest, America, America, America. So I'm sure you have spoken to people who have this ideological mainframe of saying that, of course, Americans are the smartest people out there. When we actually are at the medium of educational advance globally. So yes, it's there in terms of this nationalistic pride that we have for America, which is ironic because we're indoctrinated even as minorities to have pride in being American, but also remember your place as an American.
There's nothing wrong with having pride in being American in whatever country you're from. If you are American, if you're Mexican, if you're Nigerian, there's nothing wrong with having that pride in your national origin. I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see any fault with it. And yes, sometimes I do feel happy and patriotic when I say the Pledge of Allegiance or sing the national anthem or sing the Texas anthem.
That's because repetition is the mother of learning. The more you say something, the more it's getting ingrained. Whether you start feeling it because you keep saying it.
Well, so we're going to move on because we all know that there are issues with pride in this country on both sides, to quote somebody. Suicide has been an issue, and it's been rearing its ugly head through celebrities a lot more recently, or at least we've been hearing about it a lot more. There was just a person who, Seattle mechanic, stole a plane and crashed it in an island. The family's devastated right now. This guy purportedly did it as a suicide attempt, a successful suicide attempt. There's another person that went out, he had a domestic issue with his family, got another plane, crashed that plane into the house, purportedly to try to kill himself and the other people that were there. I talk about this particular suicide to say that suicide is an issue. Piggybacking that to assisted suicide being where people are terminally ill, or they are dealing with extremely painful issues physiologically, so much to the point that they'd rather die than be in a continuous state of pain and suffering. There are certain countries that have accepted that this is a fact and have encouraged assisted suicide in terms of saying, you know what, we're going to give you the right tools to assist that suicide in a very humane and controlled environment. America is not there yet. We go all the way back to, what was that, the early 90s, I think, with Dr. Kevorkian, where he was put on trial for murder when all he was doing was supposed to be this angel, so to speak, of death. Is that something that we should be moving forward towards? And Doc, I'm going to let you talk about that first.
Lucky me. So I swore a Hippocratic oath, right? So, but I have opinions. So, I don't think, a lot of times it's how we frame the question, right? Assisted suicide oftentimes isn't deciding if somebody dies, it's about deciding how they're going to die. I mean, we're mean about putting animals down all the time when they're suffering, and we don't look at it as, we don't look at it as being, murder towards animals, for lack of a better word. But I think society is all about lines and where we establish these lines, right? If we have a patient that's on a ventilator, if they're on life support, a family member can come in if they're their medical decision maker and say, we want to take that person off of life support. Now, from a medical legal standpoint, that's no different than deciding not to put them on in the first place. But we all know if there was life-sustaining therapy and we take it away, then you're essentially killing that person. Right. But we've established that as an arbitrary line in our society where that is acceptable. I think under the right circumstances, it's inarguable that it's humane to allow someone to die in the way they want to die. I don't really think it's controversial. I think for some people from the religious aspect of that, the whole where there's life, there's hope, they believe that there's always a chance that there's going to be some kind of miraculous turnaround. They might find some kind of issue with that. And I'll let Damon talk about that. But from a secular point, I don't see any controversy in it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I guess if you promote life, you promote life. I don't think I have an opinion either way as far as assisted suicide goes. Certainly, I can see the merit if you're suffering and if you are in a lot of pain to wanting to end your life. But you are right. There's a part of me that feels like, you don't know what God has in store for you. You don't know if there is a light at the end of that tunnel that might be there, might not be. I don't know. So I can't put myself in a circumstance because I'm not in a place. And luckily for me, no one in my family has been in a place where they've felt the only escape was suicide. And so all I can say is, I give out for hope. I always give out that there's hope out there to make something better. And I think suicide to me is kind of the end of that hope, and it makes me sad.
But secular or not, why should it even matter when you talk about the individual? Why shouldn't an individual have the ability to say when their life ends? I mean, that we talk about all the time. My personal right, it's my body. Whether we're talking about abortion, whether we're talking about drug usage, whether we're talking about being in relationships, we always say my body, my right, my whatever. Why should the government have this one caveat to say, we're going to make this illegal for you to do this? If you make that choice, you make that choice. I don't see why secular or religion should have anything to do with it.
So because I don't know of any jurisdiction that criminalizes suicide. So if you try to kill yourself and you fail, I don't know of any place that you will get arrested for it. No. There's a difference. To answer Brendan's question, if you want to kill yourself, you can do so. I don't know of anybody that will stop you. That's what I'm getting at. But I think you're asking, to answer your question, if you want to kill yourself, you can. The government can't stop that, and they can't punish you for doing so. However, they can step in and say no one can help you.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know if I see a fault in that. If you want to kill yourself, then you do it. But allowing other people to step in and say do it this way and we'll help you. I mean, I can see how the government has an interest.
But that's not necessarily true because
let's let Allie talk on this.
Well, I'm just wondering where you draw the line, Brendan. You know what I mean? Like, where do you draw the line? Like,
And murder,
they're
death,
dead. I mean, well, they're dead. So are you going to ask them, did you really want to die, when this person assisted you? And so at the end of the day, like, where do you draw the line? So no one should be able to assist you. If you're going to kill yourself, do it on your own. Because at the end of the day, who's to say people won't, like, help people that don't want to be helped? I mean, you can't draw the line there. So that, I think it's just a safe way. Safe way?
Surely you can have that. What am I
Documentation.
But I said there are ways to get around that, saying, "Oh nope, just kill themselves." There are guidelines that you could put in place.
What if they're
to
mentally? A lot of people are mentally unstable.
See, that's the problem.
And so you just can't. You cannot.
Well, if you want to be crazy
people.
and dead, be crazy and dead.
So that's the
on
problem
you.
with our societal definitions of insane make it impossible for that scenario you talked about to be true, because we deem anybody who wants to take their life as having some kind of mental issue, underlying that. For the most part, you can't come to the hospital and say I want to kill myself, but I'm in my right state of mind, and we're gonna let you go out the door.
You're right.
We're obligated by law to keep you in the hospital and detain you. So there's no individual right to kill yourself per se either.
Because suicide is one of those things that kind of go against human nature. Nature has made life to want to promulgate and move forward, to act in a way of self-interest, and to say like, I want to kill myself. That kind of goes against human nature, and it makes anybody stand up and say, well, before you do this, let's make sure you're not being compelled in some way other than I guess a genuine desire to kill yourself that's not spurred by mental illness or drugs or coercion.
All right, so we've come to the point of the show where Allie, this is where it is. You have been shining, but it is your time to truly shine as we talk about the first of our great debate topics, which is interracial relationships. Quite often, we were given this right to intermarry back in the 1970s. It became a constitutional right. Loving v. Smith, a Supreme Court case that said, hey, you cannot deter or legally stop somebody's right to interracially marry in this country. There have been a lot of issues as it pertains to the black community, and a lot of debate as to the efficacy and the appropriateness of interracial relationships. There are people on one side that say, love who you love. There are other people that say, if you're not for us, then ostensibly you're against us. And then there are people like kind of in that middle that say, don't go out and try to find someone of the opposite race. But if you do happen to find somebody, by all means, do what you do. We've talked before, and you've been on social media and have had some pretty outspoken theories on interracial relationships as they pertain to you and as they pertain to black people. I want to give you a chance first before we go into this to kind of give us your take on interracial relationships and where you stand on it.
I'm all for them. At the end of the day, people have to understand that there are not that many black men that are doing something that are not taken for us to choose from. So at the end of the day, if we have to go outside and add,
Hold on.
doctor, and add to our pool of men, what's the problem? I don't think it's right to live your life as, I will never talk to this race because of their race. Is that not racist, Doc?
No, it's not racist.
Okay.
I get that.
Okay.
So I come here to play with you hoes.
Because sometimes, we can, I just feel like, what's the problem? What's the problem with dating outside of your race? What's the problem?
Nothing from a fundamental level. But let me ask you this question: if love was truly random and people just love whoever they wanted to, like you propose black people do, why is it then that the most free among us, arguably white men, more than 95% of the time marry other white women, and every other race follows that similar pattern? I have the fortune of working.
Society.
Hold on, I have a fortune of working in a very diverse hospital and in a very diverse city. And I have a lot of Indian friends, I have a lot of Pakistani friends, I have a lot of Nigerian friends, and invariably these people preferentially date within their race, and no one has a problem with that. But when a black person decides that they want to not divest from their community, they want to take this, this professionalism I gain, this knowledge, this wealth, and they want to cultivate a black family and keep that strength within their community, all of a sudden you start throwing around terms like racism or intolerance. I don't think necessarily that someone should, shy away love from somebody else, but we should make an effort to try to keep those resources in our community. Everyone else does it, but somehow it's a pejorative to when it comes to black people. That's why we're where we are, because we don't think in a unified sense.
We are where we are because you won't go talk to a friend. That's why we are where we are. Okay? You won't go talk to a friend, and you won't lift them up to the status and level that you're on. I'm just not going to sit up here and call anyone out. But out of the men in this room, almost all of them are taken, ladies. They're all taken. And they're all educated. They're all smart, and they're all handsome black men. But they're taken. So you want to leave me with the ones with the pants off their behind, the felonies, what's left. And it's easy for you intelligent men to tell us intelligent black women stay within the race because you have already chosen and you have someone. But for those of us who don't, what are we supposed to do? Do you know the riffraff we must settle for?
Okay, so hold on. So what I'm hearing from you, and it's not, once you sift through the bullshit, you actually aren't saying something that's terribly off base. When let me try to translate. What you're basically saying is, hey, look, the pool of dateable black guys is low because most of what you would consider to be the dateable black guys are taken, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so instead of having to lower your standard and settle for somebody who's not necessarily what you feel to be the elite force of black men, you go outside and say, let me go find somebody else that's still elite, not necessarily black, correct?
Absolutely.
Does that then preclude you from dating black men? Or are you at the point right now where you're saying, look, really all I'm dating right now are black men? Or, I'm sorry, are white men? Or are you still including black men as part of that dating pool?
I'm still including black men as part of the dating pool, but I will say it's like one tough,
So
it's some Indians, some Hispanics, white, and then, one black. And I think that's just because it's not that many of you all. It is not.
So I guess your question, do you think that there's a large pool of really successful single black women, and there's just not a large pool of black men? I mean,
absolutely.
Is the same logic applied to black men? So are you okay with everything you said being applied to a black man?
No, you're
absolutely. Because let me tell you something. I know that you all don't want a chicken head that's on welfare. I know you don't.
That's not the black woman though. That is a caricature of the black woman.
Listen, at the end of the day, people want their status. Okay. And there just are not that many black men.
So I guess what I'm saying is, are you okay with me saying, or a black man saying, there is not enough eligible quality black women out there, and so I have to date a white woman? So your logic applies across the board.
If y'all want to date white women, you want to date Chinese, you're doing it anyways. That's what made us have to go off
let me
and
be clear for everybody, including the people on Facebook, right? I am not. Love is love, and if you find love, damn it, stay where you are, right? But I'm talking about preference. I'm not talking about if y'all see Rod 20 years from now and I got a white lady and y'all be like, yo, you're a hypocrite.
You can't can't pull a Kanye.
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is, I preferentially want to build a black family with black children, raise black wealth, and have that stem off and to my generations and my progeny. So I don't see anything wrong with that because everyone else does that. What's sinister about that?
Because, see, it's easy for the black man to say that. Because at the end of the day, the man is up here, the woman is down here. The man is supposed to take care of the woman. You all have much more to choose from. At the end of the day, that's the way it's been set up.
You're subscribing to gender norms that are very toxic.
You all have much more to choose from than we do. A man is supposed to be the steward, the head of the home. Some of these fools out here...
So maybe you're just looking at a place that's not, like, I don't know.
You need to stop being a groove, man. That's your problem.
Hello, I'm sorry, but I'm also an attorney. I see you all as well, and y'all are taken. So what am I to do?
I mean, I see.
What am
I can't let you stand alone on this because I feel bad. But I mean, I see your point in terms of saying that your pool is more limited because statistically you are correct. There are more black women that are educated than black men that are educated. Black women actually lead the pack in all demographics as being the most educated out of all. So, and black men are at the bottom of that educational pack. However, the thing that you say, first of all, you make it seem like out of the millions of black men, there's not enough of that pool for you to have at least a comfortable pool of men to go out and date from. And I think that that's erroneous because every good black man is not taken, and I think that there are enough single black men that aren't taken for you to still go out there and dive in without using the pejorative that Rod was talking about, saying that black men by and large don't equate to your standard.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention the ones that are not taken are pompous, and they have like 4 women. And I'm sorry, but I'm not down with it.
Well, if they're single, of course they got 4 women.
Okay, all right. So then we're,
So
there
Brittany,
we go.
You said something that I think is a false equivalency. You're saying black women are the most educated, which I believe is true. Black men are the least, so therefore there's not equality to pull from. And I disagree with that.
I didn't say
Success doesn't, education doesn't equal success. And money to me doesn't equal success. You can find love in a variety of ways. And so if you're limiting yourself to somebody who is just like me in education and wealth, you might be missing your successful person or the person for you in exchange for a blue collar worker or a non blue collar worker who provides for you and provides for anybody in a way. I don't think it's a fair equivalency to say that. I think there's just the idea that there's just a very narrow, small pool of eligible, quality black men, to me, feeds into every narrative that black men are no good, every narrative that black men are spend all their time in jail, every narrative that's a negative stereotype of black men. It feeds into that, and I'm vehemently opposed to it.
But what if it's true?
One of our correspondents from the field has said, "What is your measure of success? Does being educated and having a degree automatically equal success?"
No, because my father is a hard worker. He farms. He works, at the ship channel, and he makes really good money. So at the end of the day, it is not necessarily.
So what are you looking for then? I mean, what are you looking for that you are not finding within black men? And because you can't say on one end, I need to find a good man with this high education rate, and then on the other end say, well, my father's a shipyard guy. He makes well enough money to take care of a family. Those two things are not equivocal.
No, they are, because see, you guys are equating education and money. At the end of the day, people have to be equally yoked, and that's just the truth. You cannot be with somebody that's so different from you that you can't intertwine. And that's what you all want the black woman to do, obviously.
So how do you feel about, so what is your take on black men versus black women? Do you think that black men live up to the standards that black women have for them in terms of, I want a relationship, this is the standard? Are black men not living up to the standard?
Well, the thing is, you have to understand that a lot of the black men that are elite have a horrible attitude, like Doc over here. So, I mean, how do you expect?
Call them out.
They have some nasty attitude.
2 snaps in a circle.
And so it's like, okay, you're going to deal with that, or you're going to, not deal with that. So I mean.
I don't know. I've been listening. So, here's my thing. There's a lot of talk about, like, elite and educated and successful and this and that. Like, just, if that's your standard, great. Go out and find who you want to find. But, like, I think we're just missing, like, there doesn't have to be talk about what your preference is or if you have a standard of the kind of person that loves you a certain way, that treats you a certain way, that outside of what they have or what they do or whether or not they're elite, because that's, I don't even want to get into that. Like, you don't have to talk about what your preference is, white, black, or otherwise. If you say, I want a man who treats me this way and does this and is a head of the household and is a leader, and whatever package that comes in, that's what I'm taking, I think, cool, I agree with you. But when you start saying, well, y'all are this, and the brothers are taken, and the other ones are this, like, there's a bunch of white men out here that ain't shit either.
I agree.
So, like, I would just say, as for me in my house, I'm attracted to women of color. So that's what I date. But if I wasn't, and I found a blonde-haired whatever woman that treated me the way that I wanted to be treated and did all those things,
but not really,
I still wouldn't marry. But
you still wouldn't marry.
That's right.
So you brought up
That's
a
not
point
fair.
that talking about. So let's talk about colorism for a second as it relates to interracial relationships. I saw this post. This guy made a post. He put up a picture of his daughter, cute little girl. He was like, but his comment on the post is what really drew attention. She's a little light-skinned girl with this long wavy hair, and he said, "Yeah, something." I'm paraphrasing. So glad she came out looking like this. She's gonna be a heartthrob when she grows up. Light-skinned, biracial, yada yada yada. Just the kind of girl that I would want to date. And a lot of women took that and they took that and ran with it, calling it a perverseness on his part to say, basically, you wanted a child that looked attractive to you, and how sick and how perverse was that? That's one issue. The other issue is our sense of, in a relationship, wanting somebody with more European features, because we have this subconscious feeling that if we can get away from what the regular standard of dark skin looks like, because we have been subjugated so long for the look we have, maybe if we lighten it up, we provide a better we provide a better outlook for our children. Two, I don't want to be viewed as somebody who's out here with that type. I want the next best thing. And if I can't get white, then I can certainly integrate white into my lifestyle and into my family narrative. What do y'all think about that?
Colorism is stupid shit out.
It's stupid, but it's real.
It's
It's
very
real.
real.
It's real, but I still don't understand how that archaic idea still persists in 2018.
It-
Well, I'll tell you how this goes back to the thing what I said about the flag. You keep saying something long enough, you keep hearing something repeated long enough, it becomes socialized, and some people think that it's true. There's historical context and precedent for why people think a light-skinned person is quote-unquote better than a dark-skinned person. It didn't come from us, right? But it was propagated through us and taught. If you look like this, that means you're, whatever. You live in the fields or whatever. If you look like this, you get better treatment. And clearly, if you are living, let's say you were living in that time, right? And in that time, you saw that your child was able to have just a little bit of grace or dignity or hope by looking a certain way if you were to sleep with this man instead of that man, right? Those things, as bad as they are, become the psychology that gets passed along, that you need to look like this so you won't be, like, there are times, like, if you look like this, you're more likely to be killed, lynched, or whatever. If you look like this, maybe they'll give you a pass because they think you're master's offspring, right? And we forget about all that stuff when we get to this, right? Because it keeps coming down generation after generation where we're taught that this Eurocentric version of beauty is what's right. You got little girls who look at dolls and put down the black doll because they're taught as babies that one's ugly and this one's pretty. So you get that over and over and over again, and then when you get to be adults and people make these dumbass comments, you wonder where it came from. Like it keeps happening over and over and over again, and it's in all of our entertainment. That when we were growing up, you didn't see a dark-skinned girl on TV.
Listen,
It was, it's
true.
socialized.
the historical origin of colorism is absolutely, it makes perfect sense, right?
Yes.
But what I can't understand is in 2018, the jig is up. The rules is so black women have been, disparaged for their lips, their hips, their color,
and they
the
go out and
texture,
buy it.
the texture of their hair, everything about them. And in 2018, there's $1 billion industry where other races try to recapitulate those features, and black women are still feeling this. I mean,
they still feel it because it's still
What are you saying?
It's
it
still
still
there,
exists.
even amongst
I know, but
colors.
It's still there.
Hold on, you're saying that they now have to hold themselves accountable for the subjugation and say, you
No,
can't
I was
use
just
this
remarking on
it's-
how strong that is. If
But
that is in fact the reason
it's still
why
there,
it's still
and it
there.
still comes from us.
Absolutely.
What did Lil Wayne say? I want them A. Marie's, you can have them Kelly Rowlands. Right?
Absolutely. I get it all the time.
It's passed down and passed down and
Yeah,
passed down.
But
It
So it's interesting that you say
didn't
you-
start with us, though. It definitely started with white on white. Like, if you really trace back colorism, they used to rub mercury in their skin to make themselves paler. I have no idea why.
So the answer to that, it comes from a class system. essentially, this is futile.
All right, you can have it now.
I'm saying, well, I'm just saying.
Back when you're done.
Sure. But to answer that question, it's a futile issue because the darker you were, the lower class you were assumed to be because you were out working.
Right.
While lighter skinned people, fairer skinned people, if you're talking about white people, fair skinned people were indoors, which meant that they were probably the clergy, they were probably the landowners who didn't have to be out in the sun. So sun kissed meant that you were a worker. Go ahead.
So I get that. The point I was making with it, which is to illustrate that it although it has been promulgated upon all people, it didn't start with our people, but we certainly have the means and ability to stop it. We just don't. We carry forth the idea of European beauty, even when we know we shouldn't. And that's no longer, in my opinion, a issue with colonialism or white people. It is now on black people. When you know the jig, when you know the problem, when you know what's going on, and you still fall for the okie doke, it's on you and not them.
Let me just say this. I want to add one thing because we blame social media for a lot of bad things. I think this is one place we can look at social media and say there's some good coming out of it because people attacked him for those crazy views that he had. The guy that made the post about his daughter, they attacked him for that view and talked about how stupid it was. But we also see black women, many black women and black men starting to love each other. Black girl magic has become a thing. People promoting women of color and little girls of color and letting them know that you're beautiful. You should have your natural hair. You should do all these things. So I think there is a shift that is coming because we see right now. How many women do you see right now that are natural, that have gone natural and say it's okay to wear my hair the way that it comes out of my head? So there's a lot happening now that's changing that, but the colorism and the idiocy still exists.
And I think the sad part of that is it's also a direct correlation between colorism and educational value because I think the lower down you go in the socioeconomic stratosphere, the more prevalent you see that same colorism. Not to say that it doesn't exist in the higher strata, but the lower strata certainly. How many of your around the way homeboys talking about, man, that's a bad yellow over there? You know what I'm saying? That like this, there's a certain demographic that we always see, and it's always the light skinned girls that you go after for that demographic. And every now and then you say, no, I really like me a little brown skinned girl. Again, it's about the strata that you live in, and there's something to be said about colorism as it correlates to socioeconomic status.
I would say this. My wife went natural about 10 years ago, and she was encouraged by everybody except for black people. They're the only ones at work who told her, don't go natural because you're going to not get a promotion. Don't go natural because they're going to look at you funny. Don't go natural for all kinds of shitty reasons. When she went natural, she had people come up to her, be them white, Asian, Hispanic, and loving her hair and doing that bullshit thing, wanting to touch it, but she fought that one. But they are all for it, and she only encountered flack from black people. So I'm gonna say it again: colorism sucks. Nobody says it's great, but I think this is an issue that we ourselves are promulgating upon ourselves, and we have to escape that. We got to fight that.
I agree, bro.
I agree. So, and actually, next week on this show, we are going to delve much deeper into black divisiveness, colorism. We're going to have some regular people, quote unquote, on the show. These are just general Facebook users that have said that they want to come on and talk about this. Every now and then we want to give people that are not the titled type of person a chance to come on here and just see what the lay person's opinion is on this. So we're going to have a little fun with this next week. It's going to get interesting. Allie, I want to say thank you for being on the show, but before we head out, I do want to give a little black magic. And again, we are talking about black girl magic, and only because this week we have some sad news coming our way. The great songstress Aretha Franklin has been told. We've been told by media that she's in hospice now. She is knocking on heaven's door. Just want to give a little bit about Miss Franklin so we all know who she is. She was born March 25th, 1942. She was raised in a very gospel household. At the age of 18, she transitioned over from gospel to secular music. You know her for such great songs as R.E.S.P.E.C.T., Respect, Natural Woman, Spanish Harlem, and Think. She has 112 charted singles on billboards, including 77 Hot 100 entries, 17 top 10 pop singles, 100 R&B entries, and 20 number one R&B singles, becoming the most charted female artist in the chart's history. Miss Franklin has won a total of 18 Grammy Awards and is one of the best-selling musical artists of all time, having sold over 75 million records worldwide. She is also the first female inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She has also been inducted into the UK Music Hall of Fame, as well as the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. And she has been listed in the billboards as one of the 100 greatest artists and 100 greatest singers of all time. Miss Franklin, even though you may not be with us much longer, you have made the most impact that one can hope for in this world. All we can ask in this world is to leave a stamp, and you have left an emblem for us. So we thank you for all that you've done. You are black magic to us. You are black girl magic, and we wouldn't have the type of soul that we have without you. That being said, Allie, it was rough, girl, but you ran through the gauntlet. I'm proud of you, girl. In spite of Dr. Ron Singleton and the crew over here. You did that thing, girl. And hopefully we'll have you back on if the Lord and intelligence says the same. But I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did.
Great. Make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that you share intelligence with your friends and family. If you like us, if you love us, please, we're trying to build this up over the. Yeah, even if you hate us, like, yo, there's a show that I hate that I need you to watch. We are in the next couple of weeks going to be pushing out a whole new type of format for the show. We've got some software coming that we're working on. It's going to be exciting. It's going to take us to the next level. So hoping that you can join us for that. Make sure that you share us via Facebook. www.gentspodcast.com is our website. If you're going to IG, it's what? Gents Podcasting, and we also are on YouTube, so subscribe on YouTube. You can get to our YouTube channel. The easiest way is to go to the website. We have an emblem right there that says YouTube. Click on that and subscribe. We're trying to build a dedicated YouTube channel. Whew, there's a lot to talk about, but ladies and gentlemen, that's our time. This is Intelligence, bringing you knowledge with the power to change. We will see you next week. Thank you.
Peace.
Right as my phone dies.
Yo, man, I gotta make batteries.